When I first met Nightout, he was a friendly office worker who wrapped his tie around his head when he got drunk. Time has passed, and now he's a friendly manga artist. I wonder if he still wraps his tie around his head. Congratulations on the movie version of TRIGUN. Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Future Casey here, coming from the editing bay, known as my room. Welcome to part 2 of TRIGUN Multiple Bullets. I recorded the TRIGUN video a few weeks ago, and I really hated the opening. So that's what we're doing here today. So welcome to part 2 of TRIGUN Multiple Bullets. I spent a lot of time on this video, and if you're confused as to why this is part 2 and not part 1, I highly suggest you go back and rewatch part 1 of this 2-part mini-series, or whatever. With that out of the way, thank you guys so much for clicking on this video, and let's get right into it. Before we move on to chapters 5 through 8, we need to talk a little bit about the artwork. And no, not the artwork in the chapters like I've been talking about, but actually the artwork in between the chapters. This one-shot was released right before the TRIGUN Badlands Rumble movie would premiere. And while that was happening, a lot of other creatives and mangakas and animators just came together and sent these amazingly wholesome messages to Nightout personally for the congratulations of his film. These messages are so heartfelt and so wholesome that they'll immediately put a smile on your face. It's awesome to see all of these creatives coming together and expressing the love and how much Nightout has really inspired them when it has come to their personal creative goals and everything. So, link in the description down below for all of those messages. Chapter 5, Les as Fonts by Arc Performance. Another short chapter. I hope this doesn't become a theme or anything. So this is a basic retelling of the story you will come to know if you watch the show. The chapter is told in the form of a storybook. Simple on the surface, but poetic in execution. And even though we, the readers, are reading this storybook, it's not presented that way. It's presented as a narrator telling it to their granddaughter. And the narrator is none other than Millie. Just as we end up at the climax of the book, it closes. Grandma Millie tells her granddaughter to go to bed, and the child agrees, but not before she says she's excited about Aunt Meryl's birthday party tomorrow. In this one little piece of dialogue, we hear that Millie has not only had children, but her children have had children, and that Meryl is also alive and well. The fact that there's actually a celebration happening is something that we don't get, and it's just super nice to hear that the world of Gunsmoke is seemingly at peace. And even though this chapter does not tell us that, the fact that Vash's and Wolfwood's story has been told into a book just makes it seem like what they went through was just that legendary. Was that world-changing that it might have led to the peace of Gunsmoke? So I just thought that was a really, really cool and subtle way to tell us, the viewer, that everything is okay. The granddaughter walks away with that stupid cat in her arms that has probably been around for millennia. And I still don't understand what they are. I'm sure they're just some Western eldritch horror in a form of a cat or something. And as Millie's granddaughter leaves the room, she picks up a photo with 2 very familiar-looking men. And she utters these words. Sometimes things are hard. Sometimes they're sad. But the world you left us is doing well, both today and tomorrow. And this chapter ends with that very same photo of those familiar men. This was overall such a melancholy feel to the chapter. A feeling that so much has happened since the last time Millie has seen both Vash and Wolfwood. She's now a grandmother, revealing that she has had children and her children have had children. The world she resides in now is not the same world we first saw in episode 1 of Trigun, or even page 1 of the manga. After 2 generations, Gunsmoke is finally at peace. The only way of knowing this is Millie herself. Vash and Wolfwood may not know of the peace they have helped create. Their ideals will live on in the lives of the coming generations. That's what that quote means to me, that Millie had said about both today and tomorrow. People are probably learning about Vash and Wolfwood in this world in school because of how important they were toward the peace movement of Gunsmoke. Without Vash, there would not be any peace, and if there wasn't any Wolfwood helping Vash along the way and being the foil to Vash, it probably wouldn't have happened. Honestly, both of those two are so important to the ending of this story that it really does make me a little sad that we don't get to see them in this chapter, but I think I really just need to know that what they did actually mattered. What Wolfwood and Vash did somehow impact the world. And I think everyone really does have the ability to impact the world for the better. It's through our choices, it's through our words, and it's through meeting other people and having these conversations that will not only make the world better and more peaceful, but will also, in the grand scheme of things, make it seem like what we're doing actually matters. I hope everyone got out of bed today, and I hope everyone is having a great day. And I hope everyone will have an even better tomorrow. This really feels like a great way to cap the series off. Of course, this isn't a canon chapter. We, the viewers, don't really know what world Vash would have wanted for the future. But the fact that his friends were able to start a family would be all he really needed to know. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men. It is the great royal road that everyone sets off at least once, and yet it is impossible. Just impossible, more than I could ever say. As long as the words development and pioneering exist beyond the horizon, it is given that these platitudes are toast in the same way. A hero who faces gangs of enemies must never talk about peace. His own words will become his enemy. Love and peace become a greater lie the more you talk about them. That's right. Vash the Stampede is a structural defect. The difficult theme borne by Vash is a difficult enemy that many people have faced and given up for their own reasons. After moving on to Maximum, Vash was forced to become more aware of this difficult enemy than even before. Manga are different from novels. The emotions of character are expressed through drawings and framing. In Yashihiro Naito's name, I see a greater visual manga, much that leaves the interpretation up to the sensibility of the reader. Because of this, it is rare to correctly understand the creator's intentions and the difficulties of the character clearly through all the details. However, there are episodes in Trigun where there is no way the meaning is vague. In Volume 5, where Vash lays his heart bare, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Then, in Wolfwood's remembrance, in the end of Volume 10, he never made any excuses. These two phrases crystallize Trigun as a solid story. He could say, I'm sorry. He could apologize. but he never said, "Forgive me." Even while attempting his entire spirit to make up for his sins, he never asked for anything himself. He acknowledged his mistakes and continued screaming down the correct path. Vash, with his structural defect, shone brightly as a hero by exposing this fault. When drawing a champion of justice in a work meant for entertainment, there is never a time where I'm not aware of that lovable gunman. And now comes the movie version. Show me a glorious gunfight that opens my eyes and my spirit. Chapter 6, Mil Mur TV by Yuga Takauchi. So, this chapter is only 9 pages. The shortest chapter by far. And probably my least favorite. I know it's weird to say that I have a least favorite chapter in a one-off with all great chapters, but if I had to really choose a least favorite, this would be it, unfortunately. It just doesn't have enough substance for me compared to all the other chapters. Regardless of page length, there just wasn't enough meat in the story, and let me explain to you why. So, the chapter is really only a variety show that Millie and Meryl put on in what I assume to be after the events of the anime. Anyway, if you can't already tell, the art style is very shitty. Not that there's anything wrong with that, I think it's very cute and serves well with the outright silliness of the chapter. However, it's a very stark contrast from everything that we've gotten beforehand. If you take all the other chapters we've looked at and put them all next to each other, this chapter stands out the most by far. And that's not a bad thing by any means, but it's just an observation that this chapter looks the most different and doesn't really have a story, more of just like a little check-in, I guess, with Millie, Meryl, and specifically the citizens of Gunsmoke, because apparently TVs are around, which I don't think they were around in the anime. I might have to go do some looking for the B-roll of this to find something, but I think they only had radios or something. So the fact that a variety show is happening is cool to think about, and that the world of Trigun has evolved technological to the point of television. The variety show hasn't been doing well in terms of viewers. Nobody really seems to want to watch Millie or Meryl do anything. They just really want to see Vash. And I think that's a really funny comparison to the show. I love Millie and Meryl. They're some of my favorite characters. However, they're just not as well liked, I feel like, compared to Vash and Wolfwood. Now, yeah, Vash and Wolfwood have the most screen time, probably, and have some of the most heartfelt and, like, philosophical ideologies and lines in the show, but Millie is just flat out hilarious, and she herself has this amazing positivity around her that almost nothing can go wrong as long as she has a little piece of pudding, you know? And Meryl adores the fact that Vash vows never to kill, but like I said in the first video, she thinks that this is a very dangerous way to live and will only end with Vash getting killed. But unfortunately, the chapter doesn't really go into that at all. They really just play with the comedy, which again isn't bad. And I think this chapter really is a nice change of pace, especially for this next chapter we're going to be talking about. It just doesn't have a lot, if that makes sense. The chapter ends with a very nice gag of Vash pretending to be someone getting interviewed by Millie and Meryl, only to have a breeze go by and blow off the mustache or the fake hair that he had on. And then Vash runs away because he doesn't want to be part of the variety show. He's just an ex-gunman. A very cute chapter. I think it does work well, and it is a nice change of pace. It's just such a stark contrast and so different than everything else. It just doesn't flow as cohesively as all the other chapters really do, but this is still a really, really good chapter. And now, finally, we're going to move on to what is probably, undoubtedly, my favorite chapter in the whole book. So let's just jump right into it. There's a lineage of red men, the red of passion. Men who are permitted to clothe themselves in a spreading blood-red tide. Red men must be the strongest. They must have indestructible flesh and an unbending spirit. This is much more than being red right after transformation. Red men must always wear red clothes that embody strength, as though their clothes were a second layer of skin, and proudly display them. That is how they can fearlessly face trouble that rains down and laugh it off. Not allow it to escape, not give a single inch. Despite having great power, red men must be pushed to the brink by a destructive enemy. Powerful men are defined by powerful men, and do not fight those who are weaker. That is why red men challenge themselves with enemies who are just more than strong. Alone, Vash faces organizations with territories throughout the universe, military forces that surge from other planets, and massive forces of uncontrollable numbers by himself. His fight is like that of Cobra against the Pirate Guild, or Dante against the Munduns, king of the underworld. However, was there ever another such as Vash the Stampede, who faced such a large number of matchless enemies? Vash resisted the use of force, the killing, the destruction, the very things that define such strong men. He rebelled against the very existence of the world, despite having the greatest power. No, because of it. He refused to let that power be the means to an end. Thus, this man, Vash, challenged fate. I'm sure many readers suspected it was nothing but hypocrisy, supported by lip service of pre-existing harmony. But as the situation developed into even more dire circumstances, with the appearance of Legato, the gun-ho guns, and then knives, Vash's stance was not shaken one bit. He alone refused to kill an unforgiving world, where blood blows in the wind. The fiercer the battle became, the more Vash's convictions bubbled up abnormally, as if you could sense a type of madness. Then, the truth of the past was told. He didn't refrain from killing a narcissist conceit. When I learned that his insistence on saving quote-unquote human life was a curse, a fate, and everything he lived for, the roaring red of his coat was burned into my corneas. Yes, the red men. Those whose unending danger holds great appeal for young men. All those who have this memory of longing for such men house in their hearts the bravery to laugh away whatever gloom, tears, and distress they might face. Thank you, my hero. Even though this is a hard world we live in, whenever I think of your smile, it gives me the strength to carry on. Chapter 7. Raijin, Thunder God Rising. So for people who haven't seen the anime yet, this character is Raijin. He's a member of the Gunho Guns, which is a mercenary group that is hunting Vash in the show. When you think about it, it's very much some villain of the week type shit. A new villain every episode. They're all wacky and zany. They don't have many commonalities, to say the least. They're all, like I said, they're wacky, they're zany, they're all their own characters, and each of them stands apart from one another. None of the Gunho Guns look like one another or act like one another. They're all their individual gunmen out there hunting Vash for their own specific reason, all employed by the same person. So the fact that this whole chapter is dedicated to a one-off character in the show is honestly fucking incredible. We get a non-canon backstory to a side character. That, to me, just immediately, raises my excitement. I'm just, ready to go. Hell yeah. Raijin's episode was really good. We saw some of Vash's past, and Raijin was really just this kind of comedic character. He's a samurai in a western. So he has, the vest, but he also has the katana at his side, and he does use a little bit of technology, so he's not a traditional samurai. He's a futuristic Western samurai. They do play into the comedy of that aspect in the episode, but there's, zero comedy in this chapter, and we'll delve into why. So in the show, we didn't really get a backstory for him or really any of the Gunho Guns. So the fact that we get a whole chapter dedicated to his backstory is, again, just insane. It makes Raijin's character feel so much more alive. We even get an understanding as to why Raijin went down the path he went down and eventually became a Gunho Gun. It kind of perfectly encapsulates his character arc and the story that he went through. So Raijin being a samurai just ends up being a gag in the episode, but in this chapter, we do get an explanation as to why and how he became a samurai. Raijin was an orphan wandering Gunsmoke. He found an abandoned lab with human recordings of history, learning the ways of the samurai, which just totally makes Raijin this really big nerd with too much time on his hands. Imagine you're a kid wandering this apocalyptic type world. You come across this lab full of food, water, and everything you need to survive for a few years. And you spend the entire time on the computer watching and practicing samurai moves. Zero time on your hands, but at least you'll be a badass by the end, hopefully.
Raijin arrived in this little town over a year ago. His words, not mine. And has been protecting it ever since. He stays with a young man named Salem and his older sister. Raijin helps Salem train after he's finished with all of his chores. Raijin spends his days shop owners, civilians, and training. That night, Salem's older sister awakens Raijin, and the two take a walk outside. Raijin has years of combat experience being a bounty hunter. Her brother, on the other hand, has never seen combat. So if the time would come, she doesn't want her brother to throw his life away, just to try to save someone's life, to die trying. Raijin assures her that it won't happen. He taught him one of his hidden techniques and is beginning to master it, so she has nothing to worry about. A local townsman named Mr. Gatto notifies the two that bandits have been seen right outside of town. Raijin rides with the man to the bandits, leaving her behind. As Raijin and Mr. Gatto ride toward the bandits, Raijin has a moment of self-reflection. In the days of wandering the desert, he only had one goal: to kill. Or that's all he thought his life was for. Imagine having that amount for respect for yourself. Raijin does not see himself as a person. He sees himself as a tool, a weapon that can only be used to kill. Salem taught Raijin that a killer is the only thing he can be. He can be a teacher. He can pass along his practices and teach others how to protect themselves. This is an amazing point of self-reflection, and it finally seems like Raijin has had a stop being this stoic samurai that just wanders about. He's going to finally settle down and stay somewhere permanently, teaching the future, which really, really gets us, the reader, in a false sense of security. Raijin expects the area where the bandits were spotted as Mr. Gatto leaves Raijin in the dust, returning to town. Mr. Gatto aligned himself with the bandits, so when they would eventually take over the town, he would be the one to run the plant. Dude, you partner yourself with things that are unhuman. So him getting shot in the head was just like, of course that was going to happen. When I read this, I knew that bad things would happen. But I did not expect these horrible things to happen. The following segment is deplorable and some of the most inhumane acts I've ever seen on paper. And I just wanted to mentally prepare you guys for what happens next. If you still want to stick around for this chapter, but you don't want to look at what happens next, skip to this time code and you'll be good. But for everyone who's down to stay, yeah, I guess we're getting into it. Salem attempts to fight the bandits, but with just as his sister said, he threw his life away, being raped to near death by these inhumane monsters. Raijin saves Salem and slays these quote-unquote men before Salem passes away. His dying words are to save his sister, to save everyone. The hope of Raijin teaching his techniques to the future dies before his very eyes. Salem's sister, and what I can assume many others, have been killed and dissected like animals for their organs to be sold to some random and sick enough person to want such a thing. The two doing the dissecting comment on the fact that they can't sell Salem's sister's uterus, on how destroyed it is. Just another piece of text that makes this situation even more revolting. Raijin did not only protect the townspeople, but also engaged with them, becoming close with what I can only assume to be basically everyone. He knew all these people personally. He went from a wanderer only thinking of himself as a tool to be used to an honorable man who could have only continued to grow. Not anymore. Raijin died that day, along with Salem and his sister, and all the other townspeople. All that remains is a monster. So, when I first read this chapter, I didn't even think about finishing it, because I didn't want to see what was going to happen next. I wasn't expecting a deconstruction of the wandering mercenary character. Raijin's past is one that shouldn't be brought up. It is a past he can't just forget about. I'm sure every dream he has is just a reoccurring nightmare of that night. I'm sure he thinks about it every day of every second he's conscious. And I can't imagine a more personal hell. The fact that Raijin hasn't somehow killed himself at this point is a feat. After reading this, though, I don't think I'll ever be able to view him the same way ever again. I think this chapter can just really go to show how devoted some fans can be to such a series. This mangaka took a one-off character and created one of the most tragic backstories I have ever read. It just goes to show the passion, imagination, thoughtfulness, and individual care of these creators and what they've brought to the table when creating these chapters. Trigun Multiple Bullets, Creator's Voice, Boichi. I'm a huge fan of Trigun and Night Owl. Night Owl is just as compassionate as Vash and just as cool. The opening of the movie version of Trigun was a very joyful event for me. And when I received the proposal for this short manga submission as a part of the related festivities, I was very happy and excited. Drawing Vash has been one of my happiest memories in life. I am filled with gratitude to Night Owl. Masakazu Isaguro. Hello, this is Ishiguro the Lumbago, one of the Gunho guns. I like Gray the Nine Lives the best. Satoshi Mizukami. Thank you so much for letting me participate. I'm not very good at drawing other people's characters, so I just borrowed the setting. Yusuke Takayama. I've been reading Trigun since I was in school, and I had a lot of fun with my piece. It's a dark spin-off, but I wanted to show another side of Trigun. Arc performance. I remember back when I read the manga. It was a lot of fun, because I discovered something new each time I read through it. Yuga Takauchi. It was a little too much fun drawing the Nebraska family, and one with the eye patch at Rena's place. I think I got the best out of it. Akira Sagami. I like short hair, so picturing Meryl in my mind was the best bounty ever. I'm honored to have this as my debut. And finally, Yashihiro Night Owl himself. I wonder if the works collected here didn't surprise anyone, just a little. I was deeply moved by how in my hands of talented people, manga can be given new faces that exceed the small mind and thoughts of a creator. I truly think that other manga should really try this as well. I would like to thank all of my collaborators on this project. Chapter 8. Cutting is Fighting. The final chapter is the most simplistic, yet arguably the most emotional and heartfelt. This chapter is fully silent. No dialogue whatsoever. Just facial expressions to help us out along the plot. And what is that plot? Simple. Meryl is giving Vash a haircut. That's it. Nothing grandiose. No climactic fight at the end. Just a simple haircut. Because there isn't any dialogue to complement the visuals, it feels much more personal and intimate. While looking at these panels, I feel intrusive. I feel like I've stumbled upon something personal I shouldn't interrupt. While reading, I slowed my breathing and movements subconsciously as I didn't want to disturb the two as this moment was happening. Side note, if anyone hasn't picked up on this now, there is a will they, won't they thing going on between Meryl and Vash. They make it quite obvious in this, but with that knowledge, it does make this chapter more meaningful and adorable. Side note over. A haircut, in the grand scheme of everything, is not impactful whatsoever. I mean, if you really think about it, we're just a bunch of dust particles traveling on our own little journeys in the universe. So, yeah, think about that one before you go to bed. I really feel the action of this haircut holds a deeper purpose. Vash has been through more than anyone else has ever experienced in this world of Gunsmoke. When Vash's hair is cut, It's almost like a part of his past is being cut along with it. He can now fully leave that part of his past behind him, moving forward. Keen viewers will also notice that this is the first time we're seeing Vash shirtless in this manga, revealing his many scars and metallic encasings holding his body together. When I say Vash has been through more than anyone, I mean it. No one can imagine what he has gone through to get to this point. And to still get up every single day regardless of his injuries and mental well-being. Regardless of who or what is happening, Vash will always step up to save anyone who needs it. Vash's hair is also a key factor in his design. Yeah, every main anime character in anime has crazy hair. But when that hair becomes a part of the character, that hair becomes a symbol. A symbol of love and peace. Vash will forever continue to move forward, spreading his message and making the world a better place. That's it. Just like that, we have reached the end of TRIGUN Multiple Bullets. Thank you all so much for sticking through these past 2 videos. I'm not going to spoil what the next video is going to be, but it will be a similar format. Until then, expect some chiller kind of content to come from me. Stuff that I can get out at a much faster pace. I wasn't trying to have this video come out like more than a month afterwards. I'm recording this on October 10th. It has been far more than a month on this video. So I apologize for that. But in the meantime, between these bigger videos that take a lot more time editing and just tweaking, I'll be releasing some very minor stakes content, probably some tier lists. There will be a new show coming out, so look forward to that. But the new show will not be as highly edited as this one. I don't want to spend as much time editing on those as I want to do with these. So that's that little update or whatever. Yo, what's up? It's Future Casey again, and I just wanted to come on here and say thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in another amazing video. Peace.